Hello, classic rock fans. I am reporting a couple of days after seeing Labyrinth in concert at the Pabst Theater in Milwaukee. Labyrinth in Concert is a screening of the classic 1986 Jim Henson movie that stars David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. And it's a screening of the film accompanied by a live band. So to be clear, this isn't like a Fathom event where you have an old movie being shown in a movie theater. Those are nice and all, but this is different. This is the film, but it's being played on a big screen in a music venue, and again, it's accompanied by a live band. And what I mean by that is that when the film gets to points where the soundtrack has a big moment and the music is at the forefront of the scene, the movie sort of mutes out and the live band plays the soundtrack music as the film plays on silently. The idea being that it just enhances the music of the film for the live audience. And given that Labyrinth is such a music-driven, soundtrack-heavy movie, this sort of idea works perfectly with it. Now your first thought might be, okay, but who's singing David Bowie's parts? And the answer is David Bowie. How they do this is straightforward, but still very impressive. Simply put, they've taken the vocal track of David Bowie singing, and they play that along with the live musical accompaniment of the film, which, I gotta say, is very impressive because you have to sync all of this stuff up. The film has to be synced up with the live music that's being played, and then, of course, you have Bowie's vocal track as well. And in the concert I saw, it all lined up perfectly, so they've got it down to a science, which made for a really great experience. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the movie itself today, because Labyrinth is a classic, so everything that can be said about the movie has already been said about the movie. I can just tell you that I love it, and I was really happy that this production was coming to my city, and I was very happy to get a chance to go and see it. So I'll just tell you about my experience, and then we'll talk about what makes this whole thing worthwhile. The show played at the Pabst Theater in Milwaukee. When we arrived, we saw they had a merch table set up, and they were selling a lot of cool Labyrinth merch. Labyrinth has a great poster, so it lends itself really well to merch. And even though I saw a lot of people buying the merch, I also saw a lot of people coming to the show wearing Labyrinth merch that they already owned. I saw a lot of Labyrinth t-shirts that people just had in their collections. And that's because this film has a very strong following. There's a lot of really dedicated fans, a lot of people who love this movie. On social media, I have seen a lot of people showing up to these screenings in costume as either Jareth or Sarah, which of course is very charming. Which of course reminded me that about 10 years ago, I went as Jareth for Halloween. Here's a picture if you're curious. All right, I'm not going to leave it up, though. So it's a fan base that absolutely responded to this production and came out to see the show. And there was a lot of enthusiasm for the show even before it began. I could tell people were really excited about the idea before the show even started. And what also made this cool is that the Pabst was selling specialized tie-in beverages. So we were able to get a couple of the novelty drinks that came with this screening. At my show, there was 3. There was the Dance Magic Dance, the Bog of Eternal Quench, I must say I like that name, and the It's Only Forever. I had the Dance Magic Dance, which was good, but it's really just a vodka lemonade. Now, what also made these drinks cool is that they weren't served in your typical plastic cup. They came in one of these. Yeah, so the idea here is that this is supposed to be Jareth's crystal ball. The top seals up like this, then you got the straw, and then inside the drink, along with all the ice, is this little light-up cube that flashes different colors as long as it's submerged in the drink, which is fun. It was definitely getting people in the spirit, but I will say there was a little bit of an unintentional downside to it. I didn't really mind this, but some people around me I noticed weren't crazy about it. When we were in the theater in our seats and the lights were down for the film, you had hundreds of these out in the audience that people were still drinking. So you had hundreds of flashing lights all through the theater. It was a little distracting, and as the movie went on, it started to get annoying. But at the same time, as the movie went on, people were finishing their drinks, putting them down, putting them under their seat or whatever, and so the number of flashing lights started to decrease, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Again, it didn't really bother me. In fact, at the start of it, I thought it was kind of cool because it just sort of added to the whole atmosphere of the show. But some people are a little more light sensitive. Some people can get kind of distracted by that kind of thing. So I could understand some people not necessarily enjoying that aspect of the show. But that's really the only even mild criticism I could think of when it comes to this show, because it was executed perfectly. To this production company's credit, they didn't subject us to any over-the-top, lengthy video advertisements for this, that, and the other thing. They didn't have someone come out and talk for, 20-odd minutes about everything that went into the show. Like, they just said, we're about to play it, and then the movie started, which is kind of refreshing, because a short introduction is always preferred. So then the movie got started, and as advertised, when the soundtrack took center stage, if you will, the live band took over, and then in the moments where David Bowie had his musical numbers and he was singing, it was the live band playing with David's vocals over the top of that. Here's a quick example.
And David said,
That's the only footage I have of the movie, by the way. Typically, when I do reviews, I like to record a little bit of the show just so I can show you what I'm talking about in these reviews. But it's different when you're at a live concert and there's other people also taking pictures with their phone, and like a movie screening like this was, where no one's really on their phone, and, I didn't want basically my phone to distract anybody around me, so I took a quick snippet there to give you a little taste, but I left my phone off for the most of it. Also, sometimes these shows get a little weirder about people taking pictures or video, so again, out of interest of being courteous to the people who are around me, I kept my phone in my pocket for pretty much all the show. So again, not really going to talk about the movie a whole lot. I'll just say that it's great, and even without the band, it would be worth seeing on the big screen, but seeing it with the live band really added to the experience. In particular, there's a moment at the end where there's like a sax solo, and the guy who plays saxophone was actually from Kenosha, Wisconsin, so that's cool. But when he had his sax solo, he stood up from his seat and just blasted it out, and that was awesome. And that's the kind of thing that adds to the experience. That's what makes it more special than your typical Fathom event at a regular movie theater. Not saying anything bad about screenings of old movies in movie theaters. I go to those all the time. I love that. But this is a premium live event. You're paying basically concert prices to see this. So yeah, they do have to bring a little bit more to make it worthwhile. And with the band that they brought, I thought it was. Now, I will say, before the show and during the intermission, they showed an advertisement that was just a still image with some text about a new box set release for both Labyrinth and the Dark Crystal. A super special edition with a crystal ball and cards and, booklet and all the extras for big fancy releases. And I couldn't help but wonder if there was some timing planned out here. If that was supposed to release at the same time that this was out on the road. Are these things connected? I'm guessing probably, but I don't necessarily think the tail wags the dog. I don't necessarily believe that this show is out on the road just to try and sell units of these new Blu-ray releases. If that were the case, I would have expected a much harder sell. So I appreciate that that wasn't the case. It was nice knowing that these new releases are out there, But if they had really like played video advertisements or, I don't know, just really pushed that, I think it would have taken away from the experience. I think the focus of this show is this show as it should be. It's about the live music and the soundtrack of the film being presented in a live setting for the fans to enjoy together. So I believe the event took about 2 hours. The movie's an hour and 40 minutes, but there was like a 20-minute, half-hour intermission. Now, my screening was on a Sunday night, and I could tell there were a couple of people in the audience that were getting a little antsy because it was running a little long. It went after 10 p.m., and that's a work night, so I kind of get it. But unfortunately, that just meant that when the film ended and the credits started to roll, a lot of people got up to leave. And something that I think has gotten lost in all this is that the credits at the end of the movie are one of the best parts of this event, because that's when the band gets to play without really a lot of video distraction behind them. It's the band's moment to take center stage and kind of have this end of show jam. And that was a lot of fun. So I did take a little bit more video of that. I don't think I was distracting anyone at that point. So here, take a quick look at this. Yeah, that's cool. The only thing that bummed me out is that a lot of people were leaving during this. So if you get tickets to go see this show, stay for the end credits. Watch the band play their last number. It's a lot of fun. Now, after checking the website, I can see that this show is scheduled to play through the rest of October, and that's going to be it for 2024. But they recently announced the second leg of this tour, which is going to start in early spring of 2025 and basically go through all of spring, I think, to the end of May. So you definitely want to check out those dates, because I would really recommend going, particularly with somebody. Nothing wrong with going by yourself, by the way, but I think you'll have fun if you go with a friend who also loves this movie. Or, this is a big one, if you're a parent and your kids are old enough to see this movie, this is a really family-friendly event. I actually saw a couple of parents with their kids at this show, and I thought it was really wholesome. I mean, this is a classic coming-of-age tale and a great film. So why not give them that premium experience, especially if they haven't seen it before? It could be very special. Now, of course, my only question about this whole operation is that if Labyrinth in Concert is a success, does that mean that there might be a Dark Crystal in Concert tour later down the line? Not to say that the Dark Crystal has a better soundtrack than Labyrinth. It doesn't. It has a great soundtrack, but it doesn't have David Bowie. And David Bowie's presence is going to beat something without David Bowie's presence. You know what I mean? So I don't have a hot take on that, but here is my hot take on the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. I think the Dark Crystal is the better movie. So if they came back with the Dark Crystal and a live band, or a symphony, that would be a tall order. But if they were doing that, oh, I'd be there in a heartbeat. Absolutely. Now, the main reason I'm posting this review is because I believe this is a show that classic rock fans should come out for. I know most of us believe that Labyrinth is not David Bowie's best work. I don't think that's even controversial. But if you're not a fan of this movie, or if you haven't seen this movie, what you should appreciate is that Labyrinth is a huge entry point for David Bowie fans. People who saw this movie as kids and loved the music, many of them grew up to be David Bowie fans. So for my older audience who thought Labyrinth was just some goofball kids movie that David Bowie was just cashing a check with, don't underestimate it. There's really good music here, and this did a lot of good for the longevity of David's career. Because again, it connected with that younger audience that, if you look at the charts, his music in the years and decades after Labyrinth didn't really punch through as much. So this was critical to making David Bowie the beloved pop culture icon that he still is today. And I think that might be a little underappreciated by the old school David Bowie fans who loved him in the 70s and thought he sold out in the 80s or whatever. If that's your perspective, I would challenge you to maybe give this movie another chance. Maybe see it in the live theater if you don't mind spending the money for a ticket. I think something like this, with fresh eyes and fresh ears, you might change your perspective on. And seeing him on the big screen was bittersweet because it was just a reminder of how much I know we all miss him. Because he was a truly special artist and things just haven't really seemed right since he's been gone. So I think I'll just leave it at that. If you've seen Labyrinth in concert, please let me know what you thought in the comments below. So if you've enjoyed this review, please check out some of the other reviews I've done on this channel. If you're a fan of classic rock, I guarantee I've talked about a release or a concert or a film screening from a different band or artist that you're a fan of. And if you are that fan of classic rock, please check out the podcast I do. It's all about classic rock. We've had a lot of great guests on this year, and we have more great stuff coming up. So thank you again for watching. Go see Labyrinth in concert. And keep rocking.
So the labyrinth's a piece of cake, is it? Well, let's see how you deal with this little slice.
Magic dance, magic dance.